This is Cynthia Sue Larson with RealityShifters.com, and today I'd like to tell you how I came to be so interested in the subject of reality shifts, quantum jumps, the Mandela effect, alternate histories, and so forth. And actually, this has been a lifelong interest. I do basically have a Mandela effect life. And it all started in childhood when I was quite young. I noticed in a daydream state of mind, reality would shift around me. I thought this was normal. I first brought it to my parents' attention when it was raining outdoors. I was inside looking out of a window in the house as a young girl, and I noticed as I was daydreaming, if I started just watching the rain, felt like I was one with the rain. I could think, stop rain, it would instantly stop. Start rain, it would instantly start. Did this back and forth, off and on, off and on. Got very excited, ran to tell my mother about it. And when I said, "Mommy, look at this," I could tell she wasn't in the same state of mind. She seemed, from her body posture, to be a little bit less than enthused, shall we say. Understandably, often children run to their parents with something crazy, and it was clear that this did not seem like something that was part of her circle of experience. And so, naturally, the effect did not work. But that didn't stop me quietly, privately, to continue paying attention to being in a daydream state and helping our car start. Back in the 1960s, cars didn't always start, and things like that. We had old tube television sets. I could help with those operating properly as well, that kind of thing. So I kept it quiet. Very quiet, and I didn't really notice it at the time, even though in the 1970s I later realized, looking back, that when my family traveled and once had made a promise to some wood carvers in a village, "We'll send you pictures of these tables when we get back home to our new house." Once we were home and the tables arrived and were put in place and little glass tops made for them, I then reminded my parents of their promise to the wood carvers. My parents said, "What promise?" And my parents don't lie, so it was really pretty much my first serious clue that history could change, that I could remember something different than what other people remembered. But I didn't think much of it at the time. In the 1980s, I went to school. I entered the program of physics at UC Berkeley. I did receive a bachelor's degree in physics from UC Berkeley. And the reason for that was I wanted to know the true nature of reality. I was fascinated by things like consciousness and reality and the place where those two intersect. The closest I could get to it was physics, and quantum physics in particular. So even though there was no consciousness studies program per se at UC Berkeley, I did my best with it. And then a number of years went by. I had other jobs. Not so important for this discussion, but in the 1990s, after I'd had 2 children, I started noticing things changing in a big way. I noticed, for example, reading a story, it was The Three Billy Goats Gruff, read it to my daughter every night. This picture is totally different. My daughter asked me one day, "Mommy, why is the troll so large in this book? It didn't used to be." And I just told her sometimes things change. So that was fascinating to both of us. And then another experience happened when I was with friends visiting the Berkeley Marina, and they were really interested in talking about various changes, reality shifts. I brought the subject up, and we noticed on that very walk that the sundial sculpture, here it is, had definitely changed. It hadn't been there before, yet here it was, large enough for children to play on, and featuring a plaque. You can't read it, this print, but it's in my book, Reality Shifts. It says it's been there since 1970. I phoned the harbor master at Berkeley, found out that was exactly the official history now, although my friends and I had never seen it, and if that statue had been there, it would have blocked the view of another statue. I wrote about many of these experiences, as well as lots of things just changing, all sorts of alternate histories occurring, including on page 107 of my book, Reality Shifts, one of the first published stories of someone being alive again that had been reported dead, at least in my experience. And this is Larry Hagman, a celebrity that I used to watch in many TV shows. I Dream of Jeannie. He was J.R. Ewing, the character, and he's alive again after having died. So it was a serious enough incident that I included it in the first 1999 edition of my book, Reality Shifts, right at the time I started my website, Reality Shifters, inspired to choose that name by radio show host Elliot Stein of Stein Online. And he said, you got to make something shorter than this very long third age website you've got going. So I did. Reality Shifters, because there are many of us experiencing this. And the newsletter that I started in October 1999 was just with a few dozen people who'd signed the guest book at that third age website. Now it reaches more than 8,000 subscribers each month. And since 1999, and I've been asking questions to get answers back from the universe. I started recommending in the year 2000 that all of us ask, how good can it get, to find that answer as I continue seeking scientific explanations. So I've been involved in the Foundations of Mind conference. I write practical research papers on the subject of why quantum logic is the primary logic in the natural world, and classical logic is just a special case of that. And I'm excited that the Mandela effect is catching on after all these years that I've been involved in the subject, because it's stirring strong emotional reactions and responses in people who for the first time are noticing that they're not just imagining things or misremembering something, such as Nelson Mandela having died in prison and then dying again many years later. But what's remarkable is for the first time in recorded history, groups of people are agreeing that they can collectively recall different histories. This is a beginning of a paradigm shift. Hopefully all of us can realize and work with science to find out why it seems like the many worlds of quantum physics might be one and the same as the multiverse, and how we can go from sort of case study histories of noticing these alternate histories to finding some kind of a science behind it. And to that end, I continue to write newsletters, create videos, and publish research papers along the lines of quantum logic. Until next time, this is Cynthia Sue Larson, inviting you to keep asking, how good can it get? Take care.